Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the Fans of DC Universe podcast. Man, I forgot to check before we started. It's the only DC podcast for the fans, by the fans, and the best source for all DC Universe news and discussion on everything DCU. Joining us this week, it's just the two of us, TornadoSoup and I, which of course means it's going to be the best podcast, right?
Yeah, or the worst. It's probably not going to be the worst.
Definitely not going to be the worst. There's still an unpublished 30th episode.
Do we count that, though? That's...
I count it in my head.
And yeah, it's already down in the numbering.
Anyway, this week we are discussing Stargirl getting delayed. Harley Quinn Season 1 Spoilercast, if you've seen it. Have you seen it? Have you seen all of Harley Quinn Season 1?
Season 1? Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So we'll have a spoiler cast on that. DC Daily shuts down, then reopens. Diamond distribution shuts down temporarily. And DC Comics will be staying open, and more. I would like to note that all but one of those main articles is about the crisis going on right now. So, which is kind of crazy. It's how much it's changed. Although the Stargirl one's weird, but we'll talk about it in a second. But before we talk about all those news articles, because there's a lot up there, let's talk about the new comics coming out this week. This week we have, starting on Tuesday, we have DC First Issue Special number 7, Detective Comics number 355, Eclipso number 2, House of Mystery number 204, Sun Devils number 9, Super Friends number 3, The Spectre number 8, 9, Batgirl number 33, Batman Beyond number 30, Detective Comics number 1000. Are you excited? Excuse to reread it again? We'll talk about that in a second.
I mean, I've already...
Dial H for Hero, Freedom Fighters number 4, Dial H for Hero number 1, which is, of course, the first issue, so check it out. Heroes in Crisis number 7, Justice League Odyssey number 7, Martian Manhunter number 4, Shazam number 4, The Flash number 67, The Silencer number 15, The Terrifics number 14, Wonder Woman number 67. Of course, if you read one comic this week, read Detective Comics number 1000. Talk about a good issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's hard for those, not necessarily hard, but it's easier for those, big anniversary issues to be good because, like there's just, they go all out with the creative teams and there's so many individual stories that, at least one of them is going to be good.
Yeah.
When you've got
but I think one of my frustrations with the Detective Comics is I like it, but, if you go back to it, right, think about what actually happened to that comic, right? You had the fun mystery club. You had the fun mystery, right?
Yeah.
The globetrotting mystery. And then you had the Arkham Knight stuff. And those were sort of the two big stories. One of which, had direct follow-up, but, basically doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so that's one of my frustrations with Detective Comics number 1000 is in the end, I look back on it, and I love the issue, but end up feeling very unimportant.
Yeah.
Whereas Bendis' Action Comics number 1000 was truly the kickoff of Bendis' run, even though I think it's been a bad era for Superman since Bendis. It was a big comic in that sense.
Yeah, and he got his underpants back, so
I know
that's everything.
I know, it's absolutely everything. That's right. Yeah, that was huge. Didn't Batman get his underpants back too? Although that was in Tom King's run.
Yeah. There was actually, there was a story reason for Bendis's too, but Tom King had, I don't know. I guess neither one of them is Tom King definitely has the better reason for the change of.
Mm-hmm. But didn't Superman change because he... Oh, that's right. They don't reveal why he changed until Man of Steel. But he changes because he gives Lois Lane his old costume.
Yeah. Which is
weird.
All right. So it's really durable and it'll protect her. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just my problem with it is more that I just hate that whole storyline where Bendis basically one more day's Superman because he doesn't like Lois Lane for some reason. And also that whole part of Man of Steel is like the most frustrating thing
Slow
I've ever read in a comic.
Pacing. And
because
see, my
like
one comment, this is what I keep going back to, is at least it was weekly. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's why I think Man of Steel was, if it had been a monthly comic, everyone would have lost their minds.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Like that is not a good, that comic is not paced well. But because it tries to keep the central mystery of what happened up until the end, and it's just not that exciting of a mystery. In fact, it's kind of disappointing in a couple of ways.
Yeah.
You know? Especially now that Bendis' run has had lots of time to breathe. I think it's even more disappointing, which is part of what's so hard. Other great comics on this list that you should check out. I'm going through it again. You guys should go read Martian Manhunter. I'm behind on the series, but I've only heard good things. And Heroes in Crisis is coming to an end. Never mind. Oh, Dial H for Hero. You guys should absolutely check out Dial H for Hero. Even if you have no idea what Dial H for Hero is about, you should check it out. I'd like to say this. Apparently, did you know that Bendis set up Dial H for Hero in one of his comics? And then, completely forgot about it?
How did he...
Well,
how did he manage to do that?
It was like the Invisible Mafia, like one of the members got their hands on a dial, on an H dial, and then something happened, and then it was like forgotten about and never brought back. Although I haven't read the second volume of Dial H for Hero, so maybe they brought it back, but I don't think so. Anyway, that's what I recommend reading this week. But what did you read this week? That's the more important question.
So I will admit I haven't been a good DC fan. Most of my reading has been Marvel. But I did finally start reading.
There was 5 X-Men comics that came out this week.
Yeah.
And I thought every one of them was fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what were you reading again? Like what DC thing did you read and what Marvel thing did you read?
Okay, so I finally, after it's taken too long, this is one of my greatest shames of having never read. I finally started reading George Perez's Wonder Woman. Because
I've only read the first issue. It's good, but I've only read the first issue.
Yeah, it's really good. It's first of all, it's the so far I'm not done with the first arc yet. I've only gotten to read like 3 or 4 issues, but it's the best retelling of Wonder Woman's origin I think I've ever read, because it feels like Wonder Woman's origin is kind of just retold in the exact same way over and over again. You know, like it was told in the first animated movie that they did for the DC animated movie line, then it was retold in Bloodlines, then it was told in the live action movie. It's retold like every couple of years in the comics. And because they just did it with Greg Rucka's Year One, and it's always like Steve Trevor lands, Steve Trevor brings her back, and for whatever reason, I kind of hate Steve Trevor. I don't really have a reason. I just do. I feel like he's just a boring character.
I have a theory. Mm-hmm. No, I don't necessarily think I think he is a little bland. If I've never really, of the few like comics I've read, Steve Trevor's never been all that interesting of a character. You know, and I think part of it is I've never really understood the relationship between Diana and Steve. You know, like it very much feels like, you know, in a sense, like Lois and Clark always felt like they were meant for each other, or we've seen them so much together that it just makes sense. But it'd be like if Bruce, like if you've ever played I don't know if you played Arkham, or you've seen the Arkham Telltale games, the Batman Telltale games, right? But it's like Vicky Vale, they try to make her like a love interest, and it's just like, what? Why? You know, or like in the original Batman movie, right? They make Vicky Vale like the love interest, right? And you're just like,
and
you're like, I think it was Vicky Vale, but it's like, but there's just something that just doesn't connect there, right?
I mean, I
feel like in a sense, Steve Trevor's sort of like they're trying to force this like homos or this heterosexual relationship onto her, you know, and it's been this way for 80 years. But I've never read a comic that's made me go, yes, I agree.
Yeah. Like the thing with, Vicky Vale is Batman's more of a serial romantic, I guess. Like he doesn't really have a true match. His true match is Justice.
What? No, it's Catwoman.
Yes. No, it's Justice. It's beating people
it's
in
Catwoman.
the face. I
realized we were going to throw a grenade into this conversation, but
it's beating people to a pulp, and then it's Catwoman. Catwoman will always come second. But with Wonder Woman, I feel like she's.
You realize you just gave the whole plot of Tom King's Batman run, right?
Yes. But the thing with Wonder Woman is love is such a central part to her character. And, having her not have... Having her kind of... I don't know how to describe it, but, like, having her have an off-and-on relationship, it doesn't... Like, that's not the most interesting relationship that she has. Her relationship with all of the other Amazonians is far more interesting.
Yeah.
Just, like, how she views love differently than, people living in man's world, and just how our society handles love.
And whereas, like, Lois Lane is, like, this strong, independent female who doesn't need Superman to survive on his own, I feel like Steve Trevor has to rely on Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Or other heroes to back him up. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just feel like
if we put this land on Steve, and I think part of it too, because Steve Trevor's a male, I think in the modern era we find male love interest less interesting. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like a strong female love interest is way more interesting right now than any sort of male love interest, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like no one's like, ooh, there's a nice like girl like wants the guy sort of relationship, and it's like this is the story. You see some like guy wants the girl stuff, but I haven't seen a lot of like girl wants the guy. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just saying it's horribly wrong. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've said this before. I think DC, it would really help them to really lean more into the fact that Wonder Woman is bisexual.
Yeah.
Because she's supposed to be like their like core LGBTQ character, but we've never really gotten to explore her LGBTQ side.
Yeah, like it's referenced. It's referenced a couple times in Greg Rucka's most recent Wonder Woman run. It's referenced.
I think Steve Orlando briefly mentions it too, but it's not enough.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm not saying this is like a reason that he should be bringing it up more, but Steve Orlando is like one of the premier LGBTQ writers in comics.
So I was confused when, actually, if you're interested in listening to Steve Orlando talk, you know how he just left DC. He had an interview on the AIPT Comics podcast. Really interesting. Talks about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But I think it's something DC really needs to lean into.
Yeah. Oh, and not
and I think And I think what's interesting is Steve Orlando, right, is one of the premier LGBTQ writers, but the person they just had that they're putting to replace Steve Orlando is also a premier LGBTQ writer. And I don't know what this will mean. Will she just be doing an arc and then we'll go into 5G? Is 5G getting a delay, partly in which case, that she'll get a longer story? Will she be the 5G writer? I don't know. A lot of hints seem to be saying Snyder would be it, but who knows,
Yeah.
This week, other than all the X-Men stuff, and I mean all like 5 X-Men comics, which were all fantastic. What did I read? Oh, I caught up just today on the Nightwing. So I'm caught up on like modern Nightwing. like the Rick Grayson plot. I skipped like a couple issues, but I read the whole the Talon arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I recommend reading it because it's interesting. My one sort of frustration is that it's really spends almost all the time doing retconning because it kind of has to, and there's nothing wrong with having to do retconning, but that's really what the whole arc is, and I think it's interesting, and I think it's puts Rick Grayson at least in a good place to where Joker War will be the thing that gives him his memory back. Probably going into 5G, that'll be sort of he'll have his memory back going into 5G, which I don't actually think is that bad of a thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and now that Didio's gone, he's not going to die again, so that's
No.
he's always.
Although, I don't know if you read the most recent, if you've read the first issue or the Nightwing 770, but it ends with Joker sort of having control of Nightwing, or at least having a tool that could potentially let him control Nightwing.
Yeah, but like Didio always had it out for Nightwing, so because like he tried to kill him during Infinite Crisis, he tried to kill him in Forever Evil. The Rick Grayson is the most successful he was. Like I don't really know what he had against him. I mean, he thought that Dick Grayson made Batman look too old, but but then 5G was supposed to make him like 60. So I don't really understand what his
that's
thinking
what's interesting
was.
about 5G, right? Is I think Dan DiDio was like, okay, if Dick Grayson being like older or being like a fully formed superhero makes Batman look older, same as Wally, right? Then what point in the timeline do we have to which like Batman's close to retiring, and is that part of what 5G was? Is him being like, okay, look, people seem to really want like Nightwing and these like legacy characters to become more prevalent, and if we're gonna do that, I want the characters to be older, and but that's sort of my curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And we'll never know, and it'll be interesting to see like 5G is supposed to still be happening, but I don't think Bleeding Cool's been giving us any details lately on what's going on with that. I'm gonna go check though.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I'll talk about the Marvel comic that I read this week. So I have been getting caught up on Hawks and Pox, but I don't want to talk about those. I want to talk about Outlawed from Marvel because
I read that. It's interesting.
It would be interesting if it wasn't the exact setup of Civil War, because
the new update is that they're talking about how Bendis's run sets up 5G on Legion, but I haven't caught up yet.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to read into that.
Oh yeah, I read that article because
I haven't read it yet, but that's the only new 5G thing from Bleeding Cool.
Yeah.
Which is probably something that is unchangeable because the Dio would probably already approve the whole thing before he left,
Yeah.
But so Outlawed, right? It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like what they did with Kamala Khan there, but I think there's something like it's somewhat of a heartbreaking comic, right? It's like the champions lose in all sense of the word, or at least they have enough damage that they basically lose, right? And we're not a Marvel podcast, so I'm not going to go much more into it. But I thought it was handled well, and it made me want to like buy the upcoming other issues and see where the other arcs take off, right?
Yeah.
Outside of New Warriors and Snowflake.
Yeah, that's
inexcusable.
Yeah, but like with the so with Outlawed, it's like the same setup as Civil War, but I don't know. It's because I thought it
Is
was
it?
actually written pretty well.
Oh, like where
because
like
in
the
the Civil War,
where the superheroes lose and it causes the government to regulate them and then chaos ensues.
well, no, it's more specific than that. In Civil War, the New Warriors were fighting like some C-list villains. I think Radioactive Man was there, and they lose, and Radioactive Man blows up a school, and a couple of the young superheroes die. So then the government starts putting in legislation to stop superheroes from going out without proper training. And it's like the same setup, but with like different political undertones. And it's just weird. I don't know what to make of it because the political stuff is really heavy handed, which I don't think is necessarily a problem if done right.
Oh,
But like
I
with
never felt
this,
like it was
it's
a
not
problem.
really. But like
I just think there's a lot
the
of
one
political
speaker,
motivations that are in question. You know, like I think part
but
of it
like
is the
the
politics are a little convoluted right now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like arguably often
yeah
like the big thing of the first issue of Outlaws #1 is that hey, there are some politicians who want this to change. It's a little unclear why, but there are politicians who want this to change. And but it was interesting
yeah
you were saying the Civil War thing because one of the solicits for the New Warriors comic is about the champions and the New Warriors fighting each other.
mm-hmm.
Now, once again,
Yeah well,
I'm not going to read any of the New Warrior stuff because unless it's like gets like really good reviews, because you know I'm not going to support a comic that does that. But I read Nightwing, and you should check out the Talon stuff. I
yeah
think that's all I read this week. I'm trying to think if I read anything else. I'm going to my comic list to see what I read this week, but I don't think I'll see anything. Other than that, I read Nightwing 70. You should check it out if you're excited for Joker War. Actually, I take it back. No, you don't need to. Just know that Joker has control of Dick Grayson by the end of the issue. And that's all I have to say. I wanted to read Flash number 752, but I didn't get to read it yet. Yeah, that's it. So let's move on, if that's everything you want to talk about, to All-Star Games episode 5 came out this week. Did you watch it by any chance? Or are we in the same boat?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna watch it all in just one
Yeah,
little
that's what I
clump.
would do. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I just it's just not my type of show. And we've said this before, and I'm not gonna go back into this. But it's so clearly filler content.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for Harley Quinn, which comes out next week. But of course, speaking of Harley
Yeah.
Quinn, I think we haven't done a full spoiler cast in this season, on this podcast yet, because we always have someone who hasn't seen it. So we can do a spoiler cast. I'm setting the timer for
Ooh.
15 minutes, and so we'll talk for or as long or until we're good. Got it? Okay. So score it out of 10. Go.
I'm gonna. Oh, I guess like I'll give it like a 7.5.
Ooh, that's kind of low, actually. Now that I think about it, so it's good.
Maybe 8, maybe.
Okay,
But
mm-hmm.
I'm like ranking it based on the other DC Universe shows, so it's like Doom Patrol's the 10.
Yeah.
You know, like Doom Patrol's probably highest.
Young
Titans
Justice is
lowest.
9. If Doom Patrol was 10, Young Justice is a 9.
Yeah. Like I don't
Swamp
know.
Thing is a 6. Titans at times is an 8, and at times is a 3.
Yeah.
I think Harley Quinn is my 8, and then Titans is my 7. Swamp Thing, we got now. Titans is a 6. Swamp Thing's my 7.
Yeah.
There you go. I just ranked them for you. Doom Patrol, Young Justice, What was my 8 again? Harley Quinn, Swamp Thing, Titans. I don't.
Yeah.
What does anyone know? What's going on with Doom Patrol?
No, I haven't seen
Because I feel like
anything.
they've been completely mum about this. I'm gonna look it up. So keep going. What are your? So why 7.5?
Well, first of all, the animation is great. It's very fluid, and it's so much better than Young Justice is, because and I think part of the problem with Young Justice is, one, that's got to be a harder show to animate because the characters are more detailed, more finite. Like Harley Quinn is very cartoony and smoother characters, so it's going to be easier for Young Justice to animate. But also, Young Justice has a lower budget than it had previously, so like the first two seasons just look more fluid, and we don't really have that comparison for Harley Quinn. But the the really the only well, I've got two critiques for Harley Quinn.
Okay.
One, Harley is probably my not my least favorite character, but not my favorite character, which I don't know that
Yeah.
that's necessarily a critique, but like Poison Ivy is a much better. Like, I would much rather just watch a Poison Ivy show after seeing that than a Harley Quinn show. Like, everything, I think, just like in terms of acting, in terms of what the character's actually doing, the story arcs, everything. And I don't like that. I mean, it's not necessarily a problem, and I got used to it eventually. But I wish Harley had the Brooklyn accent, because
It never
like
bothered me, but I've never really thought of Harley as a like Brooklyn person.
like it doesn't necessarily bother me, but the thing with Harley is she's different from pretty much every comic character ever, in that she is specifically based on one singular person, and that one singular person played her for like 15 years. Because when Paul Dini and Bruce Timm created Harley Quinn, they specifically based her on Arlene Sorkin, and then Arlene Sorkin played Harley in Batman the Animated Series and the New Adventures of Batman, Justice League, all the way through Arkham Asylum. So to not have that
Yeah.
feels like it's missing a more integral piece. Like Batman doesn't sound like Kevin Conroy's Batman and Harley Quinn, but that's fine because there's more iterations of Batman, whereas Harley is basically Arlene Sorkin. Like the
It's
character,
I don't know. I guess it's never really bothered me. I think I'm pulling up the episode list right now so I can give more specific. But I thought the first half was was better than the second half. I think the closing couple issues like of the closing arc was just kind of messy and not that interesting. I thought it was much more interesting when it was very much like the first issue about Harley doing this element of being a supervillain, then this element, then this element, then this element. And I hasn't quite felt the same in the second half. For
yeah,
example, it starts off with Harley separating herself from Joker, and then she tries to make sort of her first like big thing, like her first uh, breakaway, like her first time being a villain, like on her own, and then she gets a crew. Then she tries to get a nemesis. Then she figures out who she is, and then she sort of has her first sort of big mission with her crew, and then she figures out that there's a line I can't cross, and then she gets into the Legion of Doom, and then she decides it's not for her, or and she like wonders if it's for her, and then the final arc, which is the last 4 issues, uh, with like Scarecrow, just did never really worked for me.
yeah,
And part of it was weird because like I think part of the frustration is when Harley went back with the Joker. Like you were just like, oh, come on, Harley. And also to a sense, like, come on, DC.
yeah.
Like I think part of the problem with Harley's
No,
story
I think that's...
is that they feel the need to keep bringing the Joker back in. And to keep not leaning more towards Ivy being a romantic interest. And this is a problem with DC throughout. They just had a series called Harley Quinn and Ivy, where like it was mostly a Heroes in Crisis spin-off, or resolution book. It was like, what was even the point of this book? You know?
Yeah.
And there's some interesting stuff about how it's one of those it's interesting because that book sort of has a couple different plot threads that sort of lead there. Of in Justice League Dark, we find out that the Parliament of Trees is looking for a new avatar. In Heroes in Crisis, she gets resurrected. There's some little subtle things, and then where we find out that maybe Ivy's the avatar, and then send Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, which will come out later this year, to DC Universe, is very much about that relationship. But of course, it's totally just baiting people who care so much about the relationship and want to see them, actually enjoy their romantic relationship more.
Yeah.
The best Harley stories, in my opinion, are with Ivy. And are more romantic with Ivy, or when they're just taking time to relax and just be with each other. And the Joker stuff, to me, you can only do the abusive boyfriend relationship so many times.
Yeah.
And that's not to say this Harley Quinn's bad at all. There's tons of laughs. I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of it. I think at the core plot of it, there's a couple big frustrations with it. Especially towards the end closing arc. But it's also hard to create 13 stories, 13 episodes about breaking up with the same boyfriend.
Yeah.
Or will she, won't she break up? Does he love her? Does she not? Does he just want a sidekick? Does he not?
I mean,
you get somewhat sick of it. And I think part of it is it's not that Harley Quinn, the animated series, is that, right? I don't think there was a lot of will they, won't they. It was just so much. I've just seen so much. I've read enough Harley Quinn stories. I don't read a lot of Harley Quinn, but I've read enough Harley Quinn stories where I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I'm so curious about what Tinian's doing with Punchline and Harley Quinn, is because Harley Quinn's definitely full. It seems to me that Harley Quinn's broken off from the Joker. Right? I'm curious to see what he does with that.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Jim Gordon impression?
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with it. I mean, it was a little over the top at times, but
really?
He wasn't. I mean, he wasn't. If he were supposed to be a major character that was, with an actual story arc and everything, then it would be one thing. Then I think it might be a little too much. But we're never really supposed to take him seriously. He is the comic relief. No matter
every single character is comic relief, but yeah.
Harley is comic relief, but she also does have serious moments. She has real character.
Same with Ivy.
So does Ivy. So does Clayface. So all of them have, a character. Gordon doesn't really have one. He is the comic relief. That's his whole thing. But he doesn't need to be anything else. He's not. His character doesn't really apply to the story. He's a plot point more than anything.
I think my other frustration with it, with Harley Quinn, is Sai is not all that interesting at all.
Yeah.
I generally just never really liked his presence. And
I don't know.
I don't know. It makes me want to say "Hey Boomer" the whole time. But I don't know. It just for example, the fact that he could become a car, just weird to me. The fact that his sister is this giant monster, weird to me. There's just a lot of things. I'm like, why? And then I thought some of the best Harley Quinn moments are with her family, and I feel like they kind of botched that whole story for comedic relief.
Yeah.
Like it was we need to get her out of this. So let's start killing off family members.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, did her mom die or not?
I don't think so.
I think her father died. There was a lot of people who died, and I was like, why? Because I was all excited, because I'm like, that's when I think of Harley Quinn. There's like, from like the rebirth Harley Quinn, there's 3 things I remember: Ivy, or no, 2 things, right? Ivy and her relationship with her parents, and those to me are very interconnected. But I will say this: moving on as we look towards season 2, what are some things you want to see? Right? We already know they're going to do this No Man's Land. We've already seen the trailer, but what are some things you want to see more of?
I don't know, because I feel this might be a little controversial, I guess. I don't like using that word for something like this, but
No, that's fine.
Normally this isn't how I feel, and I usually like, and I would usually prefer to see the relationship go this way. I don't necessarily know how I feel about Harley getting with Ivy in this. I feel like they didn't really build up that relationship, and like it wasn't.
Well,
it
I
never
think,
felt like there was romantic chemistry between the two. They were friends. They're good friends.
No,
I don't know.
I disagree, but I think the Kite Man thing just rubbed me the wrong way. I think was part of it. It's like Ivy was so like anti-masculinity, anti this, anti that, but then she goes out with Kite Man, who's just kind of a prick in this episode, or in the season.
Yeah, but I think I like what they did with Kite Man, because he does have that, macho sort of bravado, but it's also clearly just a show. And the more time he spends with Ivy, the more that goes away, and the more he becomes like sort of, a not awful person. So I like that idea that, like, oh, he's just putting on a show. This is how society has made him feel like he needs to act, and Ivy is showing him that, like, no, that's not what women actually want, because you seem, like trash. You should have like actual emotions. So I like that kind of thread, and I think if they could, carry that out in season 2 a little, and like obviously they're going the route of Harley and Ivy, but like have Kite Man actually like grow in that way.
Well, we think so. Let's be clear. The number of times I've said they're going the route of Harley and Ivy, and that hasn't happened, is so many that have given up on assuming they're going to go that way.
Yeah.
Like in the trailer, they hold hands. Friends hold hands. All sorts of people hold hands.
Yeah.
No, when we shake, I don't know if we're going to be shaking hands 5 months from now, but shaking hands is a thing. Like that just didn't mean much to me, other than that they're trying to get people to be like, oh, maybe Harley and Ivy will be a thing,
But the producers have said it too, so, and not that
Okay.
that means.
I haven't done a lot of reading up on what producers have been saying, but I believe you.
Yeah, like when they were first developed, like when the news around it premiering first started, I think they said, yeah, we want to go this route with the characters, and it might have been when it was still supposed to be one season split into 2 parts, because I think they said something like, because they like originally promised it for season 1, and they were worried that people were going to say, oh, you didn't do this like you promised, and they said, well, we did, but then it got split into 2 seasons, or it was something along those lines. So,
I think so. Here's the question, right? And I think we both are on the same page with this. Are we getting a Harley Quinn season 3? And will it be 3 months from now?
I mean, it won't be 3 months from now. I'm sure it'll be
Mm-hmm.
the gap between season 2 and 3 will be much larger, I would assume. But
yeah, no, I think I was thinking the same thing. I do wonder, depending on, I don't know what season 2 is going to do, right?
yeah,
But I don't know if I necessarily love the show enough that I think it justifies many, many seasons from now.
yeah.
Like, I
Well, I
wonder if
just
the show set it up so that there's only a finite amount of stuff that can be done.
yeah,
And, like, think about it like this. A lot of the shows that keep going, right, that, like, have tons and tons and tons of seasons, tend to change a lot to give current political commentary.
Mhm.
Right? Like South Park has been around for forever. That's based entirely on political commentary. The Simpsons gets political a lot, right? Or not necessarily political, although Simpsons had like literal episodes where they predicted Trump would win before like Trump even announced he was running. Where I'm pretty sure that they were just from the future because there's too many similarities. And like one of them is actually from the future and like knows what they can get away with and what they can't. But oh my, I lost my train of thought. Oh, but I wonder if Harley Quinn can keep this up. Right, like Young Justice works in part because it's a story about a universe, right?
Mhm.
And like the Batman animated series was so serialized that you could do whatever you wanted with it.
Yeah.
Or I mean,
Well, and
not
in many
serialized,
ways,
episodic, that you could do whatever you want with it. Same with most of that universe.
yeah.
So I guess that's sort of my question: is where does this series go past like a second season?
I don't think part of the problem with Harley Quinn is um is she was created specifically to be the Joker's girlfriend. She was
Yes.
created for a one-off appearance. Paul Dini and Bruce Timm had no plans for her outside of that one episode. They thought it would be like a fun idea to kind of play around with. And then she kind of just exploded, and they clearly weren't prepared for it. But then Paul Dini took a liking to the character, and Bruce Timm took a different kind of liking to the character. And
Here she is now, right?
yeah,
And
and they expanded on the
I think
character.
that's a
But
good
she
point,
is
though. Is I've just seen, like I said, I've seen too many stories where it's Harley breaking up with the Joker,
yeah,
or
but
Harley
that's also
going back to the Joker,
that's
and
also
there's
just
this perpetual cycle.
so,
And I'm not saying they can't go to a season 3. DC just hasn't done enough in the comics to convince me that Harley Quinn can survive on her own as like
yeah.
a series, as a TV series. Whereas a comic series, I've seen enough to convince me they can keep going by being its like offside, goofy self. Let's go, like make her a female Fury, and then be like, nah, let's screw Darkseid, and then let's do this and that, and then let me do like some time shenanigans and mess around with continuity. Okay, but it's the same reason I'm like, I don't think a Deadpool TV show would work, right?
Yeah.
You
Well, at
know,
least Deadpool, like he has, he's a mercenary. You can put him on any sort of mission you want.
I mean, sure,
Whereas
you can sort of also put Harley Quinn on any mission you want.
she's a villain. Like that's the problem with it. It
Mm-hmm.
would be the same problem as trying to give Lex Luthor an ongoing show, or Joker, or Cheetah, or Darkseid, or any of the other Meta Madhouse. Because those are the only
I do
villains that
say,
I
I
can think of.
wonder, I was like,
But
okay, what if the second season is like No Man's Land and it ends with like Harley Quinn taking on like the Robin costume or something? I guess you could do something with
yeah,
that, you know? But I'm like, I think you would have to stretch and find new ground past 2 seasons, which I'm not saying they can't do. There's definitely some new ground here, right?
yeah,
But I just don't see where this goes for a couple more seasons. Whereas I very confidently know where Titans can go for multiple seasons. I feel like I know where Supergirl can go for multiple seasons. You know, like
yeah.
there's also like there's so much stuff that Batwoman hasn't done that Batwoman can keep doing. I see where Arrow could have gone on longer. You know, like Arrow was done, but it could have gone on longer if they had used other villains.
Yeah.
right? And they still had options. It wasn't like there were none.
Yeah.
And it would have been interesting to see how Crisis on Infinite Earths gives them new options that they didn't have originally.
Yeah.
But Arrow could have figured it out, whereas I'm not convinced Harley Quinn can figure it out. It's not saying they can't get there. It's saying I'm not certain yet. Now, moving on, let's talk about some new. Oh, actually, one more thing. But I want to be clear. We both really like the show. We both gave it 7. I gave it an 8. You gave it a 7.5. We both think you should definitely watch the show, right? And for any critiques, it's not things we want to fix or things we want them to work on or things we didn't like. And part of what's hard is it's been so long since we've seen it. It's very hard to talk positively about some of the stuff and cite specific moments. And part of that problem is we've just done this. It's been too long since we've done the spoiler cast. But there's a lot of really great stuff in there. There's a lot of really funny stuff. I think the opening is paced very well. I was very excited every week to wake up and see it. Although I grew less excited as time went on. It got to the point where Harley Quinn was the show I watched in the afternoon. And when I wake up in the morning, I would it was Friday, so I would watch whatever Disney Plus first. Right, that for a little bit that was The Mandalorian. No, Mandalorian was ended about when Harley Quinn. But so mostly it was High School Musical series, and maybe that's part of my viewpoint of it too. Is that it just wasn't my top show that came out on Fridays, like a lot of the DC Universe stuff has been. Anyway, so let's talk about some news.
There's one thing that I thought of that I really want to say.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Biggest critique of Harley Quinn is they really relied on the gross out humor. And there was just so much blood and gore. And sometimes, using it sparingly, using it strategically can be done really well. And I think there are a few times where they do those kinds of jokes and it works really well. But it seemed like they were relying on that. And there were a lot of jokes that I thought were much better. Like there's one that is stuck in my head. I think it was either the penultimate episode or the finale. And I can't remember exactly what they say, but there's this news report and it's something like and then somebody passes by and they say something along the lines of, well, you can't trust this news station. They're just spouting lies and stuff, while the world is ending. And I really liked that joke because it's political, but it doesn't necessarily take a side. And I like humor that can be seen from both sides of the political spectrum. I don't know if you've ever seen Veep, but Veep is very much that way. I have
not seen Veep yet. It's something I want to see at some point. But there's 20 billion shows I want to see at some point, Yeah.
But Veep is great because I know that there are politicians who have come up to the writers and Julia Louis-Dreyfus who starred in it and said, from both Republicans will go up and talk to them hey, you really got, what the Democrats are doing right. They're really stupid. And then they've got Democrats coming up and saying the exact same thing about Republicans about the same characters. They never say their political alignment, but they're able to straddle that line and say, poke fun at both sides. Well,
yes, but I'm not saying Harley Quinn should do this because it's very hard to do.
Yeah, right? I'm not saying this is just they have done the joke and that kind of joke in the show. I don't want that to be the whole show. But
so moving on,
smart humor, and they relied so much on the blood stuff. So all right, anyway, continue.
That's fair. Moving on to some news, we're going to speed through. We have a lot of different things to cover, so we're going to try to speed through them as quick as possible. This comes from DC Universe, their community page. Release date update. Stargirl debuts right here on Monday, May 18th. Translation: Stargirl has been delayed by a week. Extra Stargirl, the original series, will debut on Monday, starting May 18th, with it coming to CW on the 19th, and will be the first members stream new episodes every Monday, commercial free and downloadable 4K Ultra HD. Additionally, members will have access to several extra exclusive offerings, including extended clips from select episodes, behind-the-scenes footage of cast and crew, exclusive collectible pins, and limited edition posters. Fan community forum to discuss the latest episodes and access to deep dive into all the comics. They said that there were minor delays caused by current circumstances. What I'm a little unclear on is I thought Stargirl was done. So what is causing a week delay? Because they're not filming anything anymore, right? And I think post-production's done. So what, if that makes sense, like what are they delaying for?
If I had to guess, it has less to do with Stargirl and more to do with the other shows. Because Flash can't finish now, and Stargirl was poised to take Flash's spot. Supergirl is.
So why did they then send Stargirl back a week instead of just taking Flash's spot earlier?
Because, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was an episode of Flash that was like almost done, but not quite, and it was going to take a little while longer. So they put in they replayed an episode and then pushed Flash back a week. And Stargirl was supposed to take Flash's spot. And now Stargirl is like the only show that the CW is going to have. Like one of the only ones, because it's one of the only ones to complete it. So they've had to rearrange their whole schedule so that they've still got content coming out. And they
Line anyway, right, is going to be going on.
Yeah, because they had.
Although I don't know how that works. Did they film a bunch of episodes before this whole thing happened?
I'm sure they filmed. They've probably filmed.
But Stargirl's the real core show that's going to be going on in May, unless this thing miraculously clears up, in which we might be getting the end of Supergirl. Wait, I thought we were getting into Supergirl before. I thought they finished Supergirl. We're so close. They were like, we can finish this. We're an episode away or something.
Maybe.
Because I know they were cutting it short because of Melissa being pregnant. And now there's no way that they're picking this thing back up until she has a baby. So I'd like to think they finished, or we're super close to finishing, and that they'll figure out some way to finish it. Boy, I don't envy CW right now. They're like, well, what do we do? And they release a schedule, and and it's gonna be weird. I was looking to entertainment as sort of the thing to keep us all entertained as it's going. But a lot of the stuff that I care about is either getting delayed, pushed back, or whatnot. For example, Minecraft Dungeons, which is a game, got pushed back 1 week because they couldn't finish it quite on time, and that working from home was delaying it just a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just taking basically not necessarily twice as long to get progress done, but 33% as long or whatever. And they're only 4 weeks out, and they're like, well, 33% from now is basically a week more. So it's a very small delay, but it had to happen, right? Next story. DC Daily shut down. They said, due to the health and safety of our crew, we have decided to temporarily pause production and plot a new course for DC Daily. So they'll be showing a bunch of best of episodes, and that they wanted to show off the last 3 weeks, I think, which was Burt Ward talking about Batman 66. They were doing a watch along of new Batman Adventures Old Wounds, and they did a comic book club of Death in the Family. And then they announced the Madhouse winner on Tuesday or on Thursday. And then, so no Friday show, I think, or maybe they did best of. I'm going to check. But the big thing is that it then proceeded to come back. And they're going to be kicking back starting Monday. So starting Monday, they'll be doing Batman Forever chat. And then they'll be doing an All-Star Games catch-up where they'll talk about All-Star Games. I don't know what they're going to talk about, but also other than what part of All-Star Games they're going to talk about. Other than they're going to talk with the James Tinney in the fourth and Gail Simone from C2E2. And then they're going to be doing some Harley Quinn hype. So basically, these are some of their filler episodes. But Sam Humphries has confirmed that they have filmed more episodes, if that makes sense. And he said that they filmed some new stuff now, and he was like, I just finished filming with like a new episode, and I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have anything to say on this? I feel like it's the same story as the last one in a sense. Of nothing's really changing other than a temporary pause.
Yeah. I mean, DC Daily is like it's different from The Flash or any of the other shows, any of those shows, because it could hypothetically just be filmed, from their homes. Like, yeah, like they put their iPhones on a stand and just, film and then send it into, like it's very doable. It won't look as good, but that's like, I think it's better than having nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm interested to see if they do that or if it's just like, and I don't know how far ahead they film or how much.
No, I think it's 2 weeks. That's why they stopped doing the news segment. Like that's why I stopped watching DC Daily, is I missed the news segment, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like often, I only watch the news segment,
Yeah.
And because my understanding is, which is too hard to get it finished consistently in time. But I always like the ability to recap news, and I also gave DC the ability to talk about their stuff and make their announcements in a very cohesive way that let me appreciate the things that I've typically missed. And it's not the same when they just have like the slide or whatever that says the article. It's not the same at all, and I'm like, why this isn't worth it to me. So that's why I stopped watching. But although I always love the interview portions, and I hope that I would love it if they're like DC Daily interviews, and you just click on it's just the interview, And I'm sure like anyone who follows DC Daily a lot is like, there's almost an interview every day, and I knew that. I'm really anyway. Let's talk about more COVID-19 stuff. Guess what? Diamond, delayed, is announcing that they're suspending all shipments of new products until further notice, which means our LCSs are getting no new comics for the time being. Oh no, this is actually really big, right? And I've said before, I think part of the problem with the comics industry, and I'm a new voice, so I should somewhat shut up, but I think the local comic model really frustrates me on a number of levels. For example, I would be more than happy to subscribe to stuff if it was easy for me to get stuff from home. Part of my frustration is I don't want to be going to a comic store every day, and comics cost a lot of money, especially when I look at like the prices of old comics. I'm like, what? Like, it used to be something you just spent with like, oh, I have a couple like cents left over, or my parents like, here's $1, and you could buy they'd be like, here's $1 at like you're at the grocery store or at something, and they're like, or like you're at the mall, for example, and it's like, here's $1, do whatever you want with it. And you couldn't buy a lot of stuff with $1. You could buy comics though, and you could buy a couple comics, like 4 or 5 comics. And now, like what you used to be able to get 4 or 5 comics with, you can now only get one. Like the inflation equivalent to 4 or 5 comics is only 1 comic now. And I think it's really frustrating as a new to be like, this stuff is too expensive, And the only thing, and so that's why I only buy trades and occasionally super single issues. And I read a lot of stuff, and I'll be honest, I pirate a bunch of stuff and then trade afterwards because the trades are cheaper, and also I'm gonna reread the trades. I was gonna buy the first 3 volumes of Dawn of X this weekend. A while ago, I was like, oh, I set a time aside. I'm like, oh, remind people to go to the comic store so I can buy Dawn of X volume 1 to 3, because those are all out. I can't do that, and my comic shop doesn't do mail order, so I just can't get comics right now physically, and I can't support my LCS. And I think it's really frustrating as a new reader because the single issue is both too expensive and also doesn't give you enough to feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm being hypocritical. I'd spend the same price as a comic for a coffee and not care at all. right? But I think part of it is like when you're thinking about comics, like you feel this need to read multiple comics in a day.
Mhm.
You know, it's like it'd be like no one in their right mind buys 12 like coffees at the same time, right?
Yeah,
You buy one
especially
coffee,
yeah,
and then you buy another one, and then the next day you buy one or whatnot. These $5 coffees, and I guess that's sort of my thought right now. Is I think the LCS model is outdated, and I think Diamond being delayed and having shut down is just going to show how like bad this whole model is. Especially
yeah,
like the fact that Diamond has like a monopoly. I think that's insane.
yeah, yeah. That's my knowledge on the whole distribution thing is limited, but it is for one with price. I feel like they don't really need to evolve. They need to go back to how it was and just maybe not like newspaper paper, but something cheaper because we don't necessarily need. I mean, that is part of the problem though. Is like for cheaper paper, the color isn't going to come out as well, and that's one of the reasons why in older comics the color isn't as vibrant and clear as it is now. But also having it go through just one source is because now there's nothing that comic shops can do. There's no other way to go. And while it is sort of it does make some things easier. Like we have how much every issue sells. Just right there, it's
Sort
all.
of. We don't get digital sales, right?
We don't get digital, and we don't actually know how much they sell.
Does anyone
But
actually know how much people buy digitally?
I'm
Because like
sure that like
Comixology, I
the
don't think even
individual.
releases that info. But it's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, like neither does Netflix. Netflix doesn't
And like I
release,
think that's part of my
so
frustration, right? Is like Comixology is the same price as like your comic shops are, right? But they
yeah,
don't have any
it
of the fancy
couldn't.
paper. And I think as
Yeah,
it's like
but
someone like I think the way to get people back on the comics is to be releasing current comics, not like year old comics, but current comics, like day and date on like DC Universe, even if it's an extended extra cost. Because people would start buying DC
mhm,
Universe and Marvel Unlimited like crazy, right? And all of a sudden they can just jump in and read everything and have like current conversation. Whereas right now, I think part of why this podcast exists is that there's some discussion about the comics coming to DC Universe, and we're not always help. We're not always the best about that, but there's a split reader base, right?
yeah,
There's people who can't afford current stuff, and people who can. Then there's a third audience with people who only buy trades. And I think
yeah,
discussion wise, no one gets excited. Like it's hard to get excited about anything, and that's one of the reasons why Hox's Poxus was such a rare event. Is everyone that I knew, almost everyone I knew, none of you guys were because you guys are all DC fans, but so many people were reading Hox's Poxus day and date, and there was so much discussion around it,
yeah,
and I think we have to start considering moving to a Netflix model with like new content,
yeah,
and that's hard to figure out.
yeah.
I think
Because
there's a lot of people who want to own it physically, right?
yeah,
And I think you say, we'll do all that content. You can get physically on trade the same day that you can get physically, or you can read it digitally. Or you get it on trade a week before, or something very simple.
yeah,
But I honestly think LCSs will be dead by the time this is over, and that sucks. And I like my local comic store. It's just the model doesn't make sense to me,
yeah.
in so many ways. And it's stupid that like my LCS has to choose how many comics it buys ahead of time,
Mhm,
and it loses money on anything it doesn't sell.
yeah. Well,
Like,
especially the way that Marvel has done it in the past. I don't know how much
oh yeah,
they
where
act.
it's DC does the same thing. Like with You're the
Well,
Villain, right? They're like, if you have 100 copies, you get an
yeah,
exclusive variant cover. It's like, oh my god.
yeah. Well, Marvel has in the past, like specifically, like it's not even an incentive. It's like oh, you want this big event? Well, you have to buy a certain amount of the tie-ins that nobody really cares about in order to get the big event. So you're buying like 30,000 comics, 30,000 comics are getting sold that nobody really cares about.
Yeah, they still do some stuff like if you buy twice as many comics as you bought of this comic, you get half everything over that amount. You get returnability on or something. Like just some weird stuff like that. Or I think that's part of my frustration, right? Is the diamond numbers we get are what comic stores bought, not what consumers are interested in. And that's why that's why it's such a weird model. And like, you've been to LCSs, right? You ever see like they have like this massive backlog of like things they thought were popular and then didn't end up being as popular? Like my LCS has this giant box of like Detective Comics number 1000 stuff, like 3 months afterwards when I came in to the comic store for the first time in like 6 months. And I was like, I want to copy Detective Comics number 1000. But there was like this giant box with like 200 copies of it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what screwed him over so bad that he was that over?
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say on LCSs. But continuing the story, DC said that in order to continue going, that they're going to be offering full returnability for all comic releases between mid-March to the end of June, which means if you buy comics, you can give them back to DC for your full price back if they don't sell well. And they're looking at new distribution models, hoping to move to. They're exploring a multi-distributor model to provide the flexibility they need. They also said they're going to ship Fair Trade Gotham High through a bookstore distributor instead of a normal comics one, like Diamond, which I think could be the other interesting element to this whole thing is that Diamond struggles partly because they closed, which forced Marvel and DC to look at other options. I'm like, oh, these options are great for us.
Yeah.
What if we start moving half of our stuff there? And giving those companies more business, then there's competition all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it's in Marvel's best interest to try to reduce the price of their comics as much as possible and maximize their profits. Mm-hmm. Or if they're keeping prices the same, they maximize their profits still,
Yeah.
But I don't know, I guess my last thought about how janky the price model is like the best-selling comics for both Marvel and DC lately have been these like massive anniversary issues or single issues that have like multiple, like they're like extra price, like $10 that sell way better and are more interesting in part because they feel very full, right? Like I read Wolverine number 1, $10, paid it. I felt like I got my $10 worth. I often buy a $5 comic. I'm like, why did I get that?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I zoomed through all of the Nightwing stuff in like an hour, like 7 issues of Nightwing in like an hour. And then I was only I kept skipping anything that wasn't the Talon stuff specifically. But it's still like 7 comics times 4 is $28, plus tax, which is 10% here in Seattle. So that's $30 for comics I zoomed through in less than an hour. Is that worth it? I don't know,
Yeah.
No, probably not. Whereas it took me an hour to get through Wonder Woman 750 for $10. And that's part of why I'm like, I think they'll either need to move to increasing the, like, I'd almost be curious. Okay, I'm going to pitch this idea to you and then we'll go close out the show. Would you rather have double packs? So I'm going to give you 3 options. 1 is the way comics are being shipped right now. Okay. 2 is all comics come as trades instead of single issues. So it takes longer between Batman volume. It takes the same amount of time between Batman volume 1 and 2. Okay, but you can't read Batman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like on a bi-weekly basis. Instead, you have to wait till the whole volume's out to purchase it. Or third option, would you rather all the stores or all the books be twice as much, but have twice the amount of content? Or let's say 75% as much, but have, be slightly more, but have twice the amount of content. And take twice as long to release.
I mean, with the twice as long to release thing,
well, so it's like you're waiting for instead of waiting for Batman 81 and 82, when 82 would be ready, you get 81 and 82 together for like not so for like 75% of the price of like that would have been originally getting both issues. Like, would you be more inclined to get both issues then?
It would depend on how everything is going. Like, if they're, like, because it would be more for one price, but it would also be more expensive to keep up. I guess it wouldn't be more expensive to keep up with it.
No, but it'd actually be cheaper, which might actually.
It would be, but like in my head, I feel like spending $10 for two things. Well, all right, that's $10 down, but I'm getting two things out of it. Whereas,
it feels
spending
bigger.
$10 for one thing. Yeah, like
so it's interesting,
stupid,
right? And then,
but yeah,
but you could see it working, or you could see people being down for it. Like, especially with the bi-weekly stuff, like you just feel like you're getting your full money's worth. With like twice as much content. Like, it's weird. Like, any anniversary issue you read, you never are like, I didn't get my money's worth. I think that I felt like violated. Right? Like when you buy like one of those big issues, never felt that way. Wolverine #1, twice as long. I bought it single issue digitally. It was $10. Never felt like I need more. Like never. Like I felt like I got my money's worth. Whereas like I read Nightwing and I'm like, I zoomed through 7 issues. I definitely wouldn't have paid $28 for it. Yeah. Anyway, what about trade? Like all trades.
I mean, the thing with trades is, one, I feel like collecting would be kind of hurt. Not much, but you're not going to have long boxes anymore. Like, those aren't going to be. You're not going to need those for the graphic novels. You can just put them on a shelf and be done. 2.
That's not a bad thing, though.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like there are a lot of collectors, and I would probably put myself in this category, who are kind of set in the way of, you get a single issue, you put it in a bag, you put it in the box. It's like it's almost cathartic, like just having that there, like being able to like flip through issues, and so I would kind of miss that, but I could see it working.
But like, 2, for example, if you have like a shelf of trades, do you have like a shelf of trades?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it kind of satisfying still to go through like your shelf of trades? And like, I tend to organize them all the time because it's fun.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing about trades is you can display them more. Like, you got a single issue, you got to put it right in the box, or otherwise it's probably going to get ruined.
And you're more likely to reread a trade than a single issue, right?
Yeah.
Because who wants to go to the work of pulling out 61, 62, 63, 64, and 65 to read one arc? No one.
Yeah.
And from a reader perspective, while it creates a higher barrier of entry, right? You don't just read one comic and then see if you like it or not. You have to buy a whole trade. However, would more people be willing to buy the first volume? Which means DC's getting money off of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right?
Yeah.
And anyway, that's my like thinking. And I'm curious to see if, like, especially if DC really likes their bookstore distribution model, I could see them moving more towards that. But it's one of those things you really can't do until you test it. DC would have to choose a high-profile comic to do this way, right? And they can't advertise it as a graphic novel. They need to advertise it as a trade-first story.
Yeah, but then there are other things, like small things, like what does it do to the numbering? Does it, how will Action Comics and Detective Comics be numbered from now on? Like, it's a small thing, but these comics have been going for 80 years plus with, there was the brief break with the New 52 of new numbering, but other than that, it's been unbroken from 1 to 1,000.
You could do something like, if you've, I don't know, like Hoxus Poxus, right? Not quite the best example, right? But they have like chapter 1, chapter 2, and you could be like chapter 113, chapter 114, chapter 115, chapter 116, chapter 117. You could, like, when you would have an issue break, you say next chapter.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are workarounds, but also, like, there needs to be a strict schedule. Because like
yes, that's one of the things I've been told when I proposed this.
You look at the Earth 1 books. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank have been working on Batman Earth 1 Volume 3 for like half a decade now, probably.
Yeah.
It's so behind. And
right, like some people like part of why the single issues are very consistent is because they're deadlines. They're very clear deadlines.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas with the graphic novel, if you need to push it back a week, you can. However, the other argument is if you need to push it back a week, you don't need to worry. Right? I don't know.
That's also true. Like
no one's saying the Earth 1 books when they come out aren't great. Right? Anyway, we gotta move on. But it's fun to think about, right?
Yeah. And it's definitely interesting to think about where this is going in the next, few
and where we'd like it to go. Yeah, so fascinating. I'm still down for either a Netflix style, Disney Plus style, or a trade first. Those would be my two options. But anyway, let's do our weekly TV show report. TV show report. Yeah. Guess what? There is one DC show coming out this week. That's right, just one. Harley Quinn Season 2, Episode 1. That's right. Supergirl has been delayed indefinitely from its release dates. Batwoman is no longer releasing. Oh, wait, maybe I got that wrong. Let me double check. I think I'm right, though. Yep, I don't think anything's releasing this week. Other than... I'm just doing one last double check. Yep, I'm right. Wait. Yep, they're doing the Back to the Future stories and some of that stuff. They're just doing reruns. So, yep, that's everything. Which is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But like Legends of Tomorrow just had its mid-season finale. Just got it. Did Legends of Tomorrow finish? No. I don't know what's going on. So I didn't do enough research on what's going on with CW. But point is, one show this week, which is kind of disappointing, but also kind of like, DC's going to have a lot more focus, right? In terms of people looking for DC content. So Harley Quinn Season 2 is your Episode 1 is your only show coming out. And that's it. And that's all for this week. We are on Podbean, Google Play, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So subscribe on the services. Note, there are 4 shows that we mentioned. And normally we have 4 people on this podcast. Apple Podcasts would mean we need a 5th person. We have a 5th person we got to work with. And that's not okay. That's why we're not going to have a podcast this week. So thank you all so much. Have a good time. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, let us know that let us know us to make a good pairing and do much better than the annoying awesome squid. Oh. I love you, and I love everyone listening. You guys are amazing. Just making a joke in case he's listening, so I can acknowledge the fact that he's not here today. Anything else you want to say before we close out?
Well, stay healthy and do all the things that you're supposed to do. You probably know them by now. Me reiterating isn't really going to help, but just, pounding that in there. So stay healthy, stay safe, all that.
Stay healthy, stay safe, and bye. Yeah. Whoa.